Hello friends, happy first day of December. Well, as I'm shooting this, it's actually not the first day of December, but it will be by the time that it's out. So anyway, happy first day of December, and welcome to the second Nostalgia Talk Christmas bonus video of 2022. In this one, I'm going to be talking about Jack Frost. I've hinted before that I was going to do this one, and the reason that I chose to do it this week is because of a conversation that I had with a friend of mine. We didn't talk about the movie, but we talked about what the movie talks about. So I'll start with introducing the main character, Jack Frost. Not from like the story of Jack Frost, who basically, I don't really know that much about the story of Jack Frost, but like blows on everything with his cold air and it all turns to ice. This is a different story. This Jack Frost is a rock and roll musician, and the opening scene is his band, titled the Jack Frost Band, in like some kind of club performing a rock and roll like blues style version of Frosty the Snowman. And in the audience, this was in the late 90s, and this guy, it feels so weird thinking about, you know, how far technology's come. The one guy in the audience has one of those old cell phones from the 90s. I shouldn't be calling it old, because like I was born at the tail end of the 90s, so if anything, they weren't called old cell phones then, they were just called cell phones. But anyway, he's got his cell phone up, like, so that way whoever's on the other line can listen to the group. And he says, "This is the Jack Frost Band. We have to sign these guys." In Jack's personal life, he is married, and his wife Gabby, played by Kelly Preston, have a kid, a son named Charlie. And Charlie is introduced as it's the very last day of school before Christmas break, and he comes home, and Gabby looks at him and says, "So, not turning in your report card right away is a bad sign." As if, you know, as in, I got my report card, and so gives the report card to Gabby, and he's a good student. So Gabby and Charlie play in the snow and start building a snowman, and then Jack returns from his gig and even helps out with the snowman, giving the snowman his hat and his scarf. He's a real handsome looking snowman, I must say. And then Jack comes in to talk to Charlie. Now Charlie is a really, really big hockey fan, and the movie's set in Colorado. He's got Colorado Avalanche stuff like all around his room, and you know, he's a big Wayne Gretzky fan. Actually, talking about the Colorado Avalanche, if you were not aware already, unless you're a big hockey fan like I am, the Colorado Avalanche actually won the Stanley Cup this year, and their team captain is originally from where I'm from. I've actually seen him play for the Halifax Mooseheads before, so way to go, Nathan MacKinnon! Making Nova Scotia proud! Woohoo! So anyway, back to Jack Frost. So Charlie asks Jack, "How's the gig?" Jack's like, "Oh, everyone asked how you were doing," and so yeah, they started talking about their lives, you know, what they've missed out on, and Jack gives Charlie a little present. It was a harmonica, and Jack says, "You know what's really cool about that harmonica? It's magic." Remember this part of the movie, because it's actually a really, really big, important part of the plot. So Jack says it's a magic harmonica. You play that, no matter where I am in the world, I can hear it. So Jack leaves the room, and Charlie plays the harmonica. Jack comes in, he's like, "You just testing it out?" Well, it works. So the next day, Charlie has a hockey game, and his coach, Sid Gronick, whose son is also on the team. Sid is very, very much obsessed with winning, and from what I saw, he really, really puts a lot of pressure on them to play well, or, you know, kind of, yeah, just pushes them a little harder than they should be pushed, because he really wants to win. And meanwhile, Jack has a recording during the game. He does tell Charlie, "I will make it to your game, I'm just going to be late." My favorite line in the whole movie actually comes from this scene. It's where he's trying to convince his dad, just come to the game, you know, instead of doing the recording. And Charlie's like, "But Dad," and Jack's like, "But Dad? You just call me Butt Dad? That would make you Butt Boy." Gets me every time. But unfortunately, Jack doesn't show up at the game. And Charlie keeps on looking in the stands, sees Gabby, but doesn't see Jack. And his team loses the game. I feel very strongly as if they lost the game because he was distracted by the fact that his dad wasn't there. So Jack comes home from the recording, and Gabby's like, "Jack, I have told you a million times, if you're not going to be there, don't say you're going to be there. You know how I know you told him that you were going to be there? Because he kept looking up in the stands. And after about the 40th time, I realized he was looking for you. So Jack decides to talk to Charlie to make it up to him. You know what this kind of reminds me of is, in some ways, the movie Jingle All the Way. I know that this isn't a Jingle All the Way retrospective, but this is the way I think about it. Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, Howard Langston, you know, he was a really, really big workaholic, and he, at the beginning of the movie, he was trying to get to his son's karate class, but was constantly delayed by traffic, and a cop pulled him over. And the cop is just looking for every reason for him to miss the karate class, basically, and finally shows up at the karate class, but it's over by the time he gets there, and his wife is like, it's not my karate class you missed, talk to Charlie. Sorry, no. Jamie. No, Charlie was Jack Frost, Jamie was Jingle All the Way. Anyway, back to Jack Frost, but that's what I thought of. So Jack talks to Charlie and is like, you know how you want to be the next Wayne Gretzky? You know, well, I have a dream kind of like that, to be a famous rock and roll musician, and I think that's starting to come true. So Jack's like, okay, how about the three of us go up to the cabin over Christmas. We'll leave tomorrow, Christmas Eve. No phone, no TV, just us. And Charlie's like, all of us and no TV? Jack's like, yeah, I was kind of thinking about that too. How about some TV? So just as they're getting ready for their trip, Jack gets a call from the band that their demo was in fact picked up by a record company who wanted to sign them and wanted them to show up the next day, Christmas Day, to perform for them. And Jack's like, okay, how do I make this work? Because, you know, at the same time, he's kind of playing this trip to make it up to Charlie for missing the hockey game. But at the same time, it's like, you know, my dreams are coming true. And Jack and Gabby are like, all right, I'll be there. I'll do a couple of songs. Won't do a whole set. Just do a couple of songs. And then I'll be there afterwards. But I won't be there on Christmas morning. I might be there Christmas night. So Jack and Mac, who's like his best friend basically, and his keyboardist in the Jack Frost band, they're in Mac's car on their way to the gig, and they're excited about it. Mac's like, great. So when do you want to turn around? Jack's like, right now. So that way he can go to the cabin with his family. And it's like, well, what are we going to tell the rest of the band? So they go to tell the rest of the band. Gig's off. They're like, thank you, Santa. But Jack doesn't have a vehicle to get to the cabin. So Mac's like, you can take mine. And Jack drives in the middle of the night in a very, very bad snow blizzard. Like, yeah. And the windshield wipers keep getting stuck. And he gets them to work on and off, but eventually the snow blocks his view, and then by the time that he's able to see, he realizes that he's coming onto like some kind of wall or something, and he tries to swerve to avoid it, but then, you know, I'm sure we can all assume what happens after that. Yeah, Jack Frost is actually a really, really sad Christmas movie. But, you know, it is very bittersweet. There are a lot of very funny lines in it, but yeah, it's a really, really sad Christmas movie. The part that chills me the most is the very next scene after that. It's like just a few seconds of film of Charlie looking out at the cabin window like, Dad's gonna be here soon. But little does he know what's happened. So the next scene, a year goes by since Jack died, and Charlie's still having a hard time coming to terms with it. Very understandably. And he's walking home from school, again, last day of school before Christmas, and Mac sees him and is like, do you want to drive? At this point, Mac has become really, really close with their family. So yeah, Mac says to Charlie, you want to drive? Charlie's like, nah, I'll just walk, I know the way. Mac's like, okay, see you tonight. Wait, what's tonight? I'm babysitting. Well, not babysitting, but we can kind of hang out while your mom Christmas shops. So Charlie goes home and shovels some snow, and a snowplow kind of puts more snow in the way of the driveway, and Charlie's very annoyed by that, and also he's still grieving, so he has a little bit of a breakdown about it. Gabby comes home, sees that, and comforts Charlie. I'm gonna cry. Comforts Charlie and is like, it's okay, I miss him too. I miss him too. Gabby does offer to stay home with Charlie. She's like, I've done all my Christmas shopping. Charlie's like, no, Mac and I'll have fun. So while Mac is staying at the house. He's asleep for most of it. Charlie goes outside and builds a snowman almost very much identical to the snowman that he built the previous year with Jack and Gabby. So yeah, this scene is basically him trying to come to terms with Jack's death, and over this scene, the song Landslide by Fleetwood Mac plays. Actually, speaking of Fleetwood Mac, I feel like I should bring this up. It was recently reported that Fleetwood Mac member Christine McVie or McVie, I don't know if I said that correctly, but anyway, has passed away. So, yeah, just talking about, that film and what it's about, and with that song being used during this, I felt like I should bring it up. But anyway, during this scene, Charlie plays the harmonica that his dad gave him. Now remember what Jack said. You play that. No matter where I am in the world, I can hear it. So Jack is brought back to life in the form of the snowman. And his first words are, "I'm home." He tries to get Charlie's attention, but scares the crap out of Charlie so much that he actually barricades the door, including with a sleeping Mac. And Gabby comes home, opens the door, and it's kind of blocked. Mac wakes up and he goes, "What the bloody hell happened here?" Meanwhile, Charlie gets into a snowball fight with some kids from school that pick on him very regularly. There's actually a line in this, one of the bullies says, "He's not fun to pick on anymore since his dad passed away." I gotta be honest, you shouldn't pick on him anyway, whether his dad died or whether his dad didn't die. Because honestly, Charlie is still human. Rory, the main bully, didn't even know his dad, so that's why he's probably, he takes that out on other kids. So Rory and his posse and Charlie get into a snowball fight, and Jack gets involved by helping out with the snowball fight. And Jack and Charlie get on. This looked like a really fun sequence. They get on a toboggan in like a chase scene with the bullies chasing Jack and Charlie, but they lose. So in the form of the snowman, Jack tries to explain to Charlie that he's his dad, but Charlie doesn't really believe him. So he asks the snowman some questions about his life that Jack gets terribly wrong. Mostly because, he's been so focused on his band that he hasn't really had the time to bond with Charlie as much as he probably wanted to. So how does Charlie finally believe him? Jack says, Charlie boy. And then Charlie's like, wait a minute, that's what Dad always called me. And that's when he realizes the snowman is Dad. So Charlie's trying to, two things. Number one, hide the snowman from his mom. And also make sure that Jack is still alive, whether in the form of the snowman or not. Jack does get into the house, and then when Gabby comes back, he manages to get Jack out of the house and back to where he was as a snowman. But Gabby notices the floor a little wet from the snow, and it's like, why is the floor wet? Charlie's like, oh, I'm doing a science project. Meanwhile, Gabby sees Charlie hanging out with this snowman, and is like, well, that's a little odd, and even talks to Mac about it, and Mac says to Charlie, well, you know what? How would you like to come with me to this, winter fest? And Gabby's like, or you can come caroling with me. Charlie picks going to the fest with Mac, and, they talk a little bit, and Charlie asks Mac some questions about his life, like, why did you stop doing music? And Mac's like, because it's not the same ever since your old man died. Like, yeah, I can kind of understand that. They look like they were best friends, so yeah, it would be pretty tough. So Charlie has another hockey game, and Jack's like, I'm not missing another game. I did not come back just to miss my son's game. So, and it's warmer now. It's not cold, it's a lot warmer than it was earlier. So he makes it to the rink where Charlie's having his game, where on the way there he's walking on asphalt, and that asphalt was very, very hot. So he basically hops across it and then slides into the rink and watches Charlie win his first hockey game and score his first goal. What a proud dad moment. But snowmen melt, that's the big problem. So Charlie says to Gabby, we need to get to the cabin because the snowman's melting. Gabby's like, snowmen melt, that's just the way that it works. And Charlie's like, you don't understand. Dad's the snowman. Gabby's like, no, he died a year ago. You're just gonna have to learn to accept it. So yeah, she doesn't really believe Charlie. So Charlie runs off, which kind of concerns Gabby, and goes to Mac. And she says, Charlie's run away. So Charlie is going up to the cabin, sneaks Jack onto this truck of cold stuff to get him over to the cabin. They make it over to the cabin Christmas Eve night, and then Gabby gets this call, and it says, Charlie is safe, and he's asleep. And Gabby's like, who is this? And as she keeps talking more, she realizes it's Jack. And also realizes that Charlie was actually telling the truth. So Christmas morning, Jack says to Charlie, it's time for me to go. You've got to get on with your life at some point. And I will say, Jack and Charlie really did make a big connection. They became more closer than they ever were. You know, Jack, when Jack passed away, Charlie had a hard time accepting it, so he basically isolated himself from his friends, quit hockey, and then, you know, Jack's like, you got to get back into it. He taught him his J shot in hockey, which kind of re-sparked his interest in playing. And so, yeah, a lot changed in Charlie's life when Jack was brought back to life as a snowman. And Charlie's like, Dad, I'm not losing you again. And Jack says, Charlie, you've got to get on with your life eventually. I can't be a snowman forever. What about when it's warmer? And Charlie says, we'll go to South America when it's, you know, winter there. It's summer here. That's actually not true, but logic 100. So Gabby makes it over to the cabin that Christmas morning and somewhat reunites with Jack. And then Jack returns to human form for a minute to say goodbye, and then goes to the afterlife. And the last sequence of this movie is their dog Chester kind of walking around the neighborhood. There's a very nice song in it by Lisa Loeb that plays during the credits. It's really nice. So yeah, Jack Frost, the best way I can describe it, it's very bittersweet. It is really, really bittersweet because, you know, for the typical reasons. And actually, just on that note, you know, Christmas time, you know, it's fun for some people, but at the same time, it can be kind of hard for others, because Christmas is the time to be with family, and there are a lot of, I know many people who have lost family members, and, you know, Christmas time is really hard for them, because really it's a permanent reminder that nothing will ever be the same. That's really, really tough. Like, last year, my step-grandfather passed away, and the year before that, my grandmother, who he was married to, passed away. Actually, their birthdays were around the same time. Like, their birthdays were the same week. And they used to come over Christmas Day until my grandmother died. So, I won't say Christmas is hard for me, but that is hard for me, you know. It is difficult for some people, and for those of you who have lost a loved one and, you know, you find the holidays really hard, my condolences. But yeah, Jack Frost, it's been mentioned a few times on Nostalgia Talk, actually, from past guests Alan Troutman and Bruce Lanoyle, who actually did the puppeteering for Jack's snowman form. Let's have a listen to what they said about the movie.
Well, that had specific challenges in that we were on location a lot, out in the snow, so it was freezing. Other than that, it's pretty similar. On Jack Frost, for that character, I was mostly doing arms, or sometimes just one arm,
Okay.
because these arms were cable controlled.
Oh, cool.
They weren't operated from inside. They were, you know, there were cables that went in from the shoulder down through the inside of the creature, and then got buried in the snow and went over to a big old like lever that we would operate. And I could, you know, work the fingers and the arm. Sometimes I could do both arms. We had another rig that was for close-up work, where it wasn't cable operated, but it was just like rods coming out of the elbows that we could move around just by standing right next to it, which of course you couldn't do in a wide shot because you'd be in the shot. But once we got in closer, we could get more control over it that way. So those are the kind of challenges we had on that character.
Okay.
That one was done to a soundtrack. So we had the recording of Michael Keaton's voice already done at that point. And in fact, the lip shapes, Bruce would actually program in advance the lip shapes to be able to speak, and then he could concentrate on the expressions after that, and on helping the suit performer, because it's really tough to see when you're inside that suit, even if you have a monitor.
Right.
Helping the suit performer shape the whole performance.
Yeah, it was bittersweet and hard. It was a
I
hard movie
bet. Yeah.
to do. Yeah, and one of the first things we did, we went up to Truckee, and then we were on a snowcat at 8,000 feet,
Mm-hmm.
and Denise was in the suit on a sled, and Jeff Forbes from the Creature Shop and I were with the equipment and the controllers underneath a black tarp and the back of a snowcat. We went from 8,000 feet to 6,000 feet in a blizzard. That was one of the first things we ever shot.
That's
People
so
who were
chilling thinking about that movie in a
It's
blizzard.
chilling and a half.
Well, when you just think about the main plot point of that movie when it comes to blizzards.
Well, there you go. And
Yeah,
so
wow.
And the funny thing is, the computing power was, less than your phone was more powerful than, 10 times more powerful than what we had to deal with. So we had two machines up there. So, he's performing and he's, and then when we had to switch machines, and then switch between, So, we had to do it as fast as possible underneath the black tarp going downhill in a snowstorm. I mean, so it's something is, common sense wise, you just don't do. But we had to do that to start the movie off. So, went from there, and we went all sorts of places. And it was a hard movie to do. But
Yeah, I
if
bet
the movie-
emotions were pretty high.
yeah, it was a lot of factors in that movie. But it was a fantastic experience, and to do a Christmas movie like that.
Yeah.
There was a lot more high hopes in the beginning, especially. I mean, we didn't have the movie yet in the Creature Shop. So what we did was they created a beautiful prototype head. It was all liquid, but it wasn't attached to the back. So we just got it down to where the mouth and the eyes and everything was just beautiful. And I was just, flying and ad-libbing, and it was wonderful. But we needed to show Warner Brothers because they weren't sure. So we took the head on a stand. We drove over to Warner Brothers. We got a room, in the executive suites. We stuck it right up there. I was facing it, and I just started singing Christmas carols. And then behind me, everybody in Warner Brothers in the building came by, and we just started singing together and laughing. And it was just this wonderful moment of just like, this is magic.
So anyway, that's all I've got to say about Jack Frost. Hope you enjoyed hearing me talk about it, and I will see you for the next Nostalgia Talk Christmas bonus next week. Peace!